The lights were blinding, the noise almost unbearable. Thousands of fans filled the arena, chanting one name that echoed through the walls and into history. Faker! 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 Cameras flashed, screens glowed, and somewhere in the middle of that storm stood a young man, quiet and calm, eyes fixed not on the crowd but on the monitor in front of him. His fingers hovered over the keyboard like a pianist before the first note. He took a slow breath, steady, controlled. Then the game began. But this story doesn't begin here, under the golden light of a world championship. It begins years earlier, in a small, dimly lit room in Seoul. A room where the only sound was the clicking of keys and the soft hum of an old computer. Lee Sang-hyeok was born in 1996. A shy boy, polite, reserved, with a face that always seemed thoughtful. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people noticed how calm his voice was. He preferred puzzles to parties, silence to noise, games to crowds. While his friends ran outside chasing balls and shouting across the schoolyard, he sat in front of a glowing screen, losing himself in digital worlds that seemed far bigger than the one outside his window. It wasn't that he disliked people, he just loved focus. There was something comforting about patterns, about things that could be understood, mastered, perfected. When he discovered League of Legends, something clicked inside him. The game wasn't just a competition, it was a world of logic, of rhythm, of infinite possibilities. Every move had meaning. Every mistake had a lesson. He didn't play for fun, he played to learn, to see how far he could go. He had no coach, no team, no crowd, just himself, a computer, and a quiet hunger that wouldn't fade. He played till dawn, slept for a few hours, then played again. He didn't keep track of time. He didn't need to. Because mastery has no clock. In 2013, when he was just 17, everything changed. He joined SK Telecom T1, a professional team with real coaches, real sponsors, and real pressure. When he walked into the practice room for the first time, the others noticed how young he looked. He bowed politely, barely meeting their eyes. He didn't boast, didn't promise, didn't try to impress. He simply sat down, adjusted his headset, and started playing. What they saw that day left them speechless. His movements were clean, sharp, efficient. He didn't just play the game, he predicted it. His map awareness was like a sixth sense. He seemed to know what his opponents would do before they did it. It wasn't luck, it was intuition shaped by thousands of invisible hours. Then came the match that changed everything. The Z versus Z duel. Two players, same champion, mirror images of each other. The crowd went silent as their avatars danced across the screen, a blur of shadows and flashes. Every move was countered, every strike answered. It was balance on the edge of a knife. And then, in one perfect instant, Faker saw a window, a fraction of a second where everything aligned. He struck. One combo, one kill. The arena erupted. Commentators screamed. The replay would be watched millions of times in the years to come. That play didn't just win a game, it changed an industry. A new standard had been set. A legend had been born. That same year, Faker led SK Telecom T1 to their first World Championship victory. A rookie had become the best in the world. Cameras surrounded him, lights flashed, microphones crowded around his face. But through it all, he remained calm. He didn't raise the trophy high or scream with joy. He just smiled quietly, as if he already knew this was only the beginning. The years that followed were golden. In 2015, he won again. In 2016, again. 3 world titles in 4 years. He became the symbol of perfection, the player everyone else measured themselves against. When he entered a match, people didn't ask if he would win, they asked how. He played with grace, with control, with something that looked almost divine. They called him the unkillable Demon King. But even the brightest light eventually casts a shadow. After 2016, the magic began to shift. In 2017, Faker reached the finals again, but this time the outcome was different. He lost. The cameras captured the moment. The greatest player in the world sitting alone, tears falling as the crowd roared for someone else. For the first time, the unkillable looked fragile. The following year was worse. In 2018, SK Telecom T1, the team that once ruled the world, didn't even qualify for the World Championship. The fans were shocked. The internet turned cold. "He's finished," people said. "The new generation is stronger." The same world that once worshipped him now questioned if his time was over. But Faker didn't respond. He didn't post long apologies or excuses. He didn't disappear either. He simply went back to the room, to the screen, to the silence. He practiced, watched replays, studied his own failures. He rebuilt his reflexes, his mechanics, his decision-making. Every mistake became fuel. Every loss, a lesson. While others chased fame, he chased improvement. That's the difference between talent and greatness. Talent wins quickly. Greatness endures quietly. Months turned into years. The scene changed. New stars appeared. Some burned bright for a moment, then vanished. But Faker stayed. He was no longer just a prodigy. He had become something else, a teacher, a symbol, a reminder of what endurance looks like. His hands were still fast, but his mind was faster. His words few, but his presence heavy. By 2020, people spoke of him differently. He wasn't the loud champion anymore. He was the elder statesman of the game, calm, wise, disciplined. When he entered the stage, younger players straightened their backs. They called him young, older brother. He had already won everything, yet he still practiced harder than anyone else. When asked why he kept going, he said, "Because I love the game." And that's what separated him from everyone else. For Faker, it was never about trophies. It was about love, love for the process, love for the discipline, love for the act of playing itself. In 2023, 10 years after his first championship, something incredible happened. SK Telecom T1, now simply known as T1, returned to the World Championship stage. They were not favorites. The analysts said they were too inexperienced. But they had something no one else did. Faker. He wasn't the same boy from 2013. He was calmer now, wiser, carrying the quiet weight of experience. The young players looked at him not just as a leader, but as proof that greatness doesn't fade, it transforms. Under his guidance, they played with confidence and precision. Match after match, T1 advanced, and when the finals came, they were ready. The world watched as Faker and his team rose again. Every match was a storm of emotion, cheers, gasps, disbelief. And when the final game ended, when the last enemy nexus exploded, the arena shook with sound. Faker lifted the Summoner's Cup once more. 10 years after his first title, he was back at the top. The camera zoomed in on his face. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He just smiled softly, his eyes reflecting the golden lights. In that moment, Time folded. The boy who once sat in a small room in Seoul and the man standing on stage before thousands were the same. He had proven something deeper than skill. He had proven that greatness is not a moment, it's a lifetime.
The noise in the arena refused to fade. Fans shouted, lights flashed, and cameras tried to catch every second of glory. Faker stood at the center of it all, holding the Summoner's Cup high, surrounded by teammates who looked at him as if he were both captain and legend. 10 years had passed since his first championship, but somehow his presence still felt timeless. When the lights dimmed and the crowd began to leave, Faker stayed for a moment longer. He touched the edge of the trophy and smiled. It wasn't pride, it was gratitude. Gratitude for the game that had carried him through both victory and defeat. He went home that night, not to a celebration, but to quiet reflection, because that was who he was. While others shouted, he listened. While others partied, he studied. And while the world called him a legend, he remained a student. The following year, in 2024, T1 came back even stronger. The younger players who had once been nervous now walked with confidence. They trusted him completely. His leadership wasn't loud. It was calm, like the steady rhythm of breathing before a storm. The team's discipline, their unity, their belief, all came from him. Match after match, T1 proved that the first victory wasn't luck. They won again, defending their title. 2 world championships in a row, another trophy, another moment, another reminder that time had not yet defeated him. For Faker, the number of titles no longer mattered. What mattered was the beauty of the game, the feeling of being completely present, the joy of watching younger players find their rhythm, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing a plan unfold perfectly. He had become more than a player. He was now a living legend, but also a bridge, a connection between generations. Young fans looked up to him not only because he won, but because he stayed humble, because he kept showing up, and because he carried himself with grace. And then came 2025, the year of destiny. T1 reached the finals again, this time against KT Rolster, the oldest rivalry in Korean esports. The tension was beyond description. For many fans, it felt like history repeating itself, like time looping back to the early days of League of Legends. 2 teams, 2 legacies, 1 last duel. The first game began, and the stadium erupted. Every play drew screams, every mistake drew gasps. The series swung back and forth, 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2. Everything came down to the 5th and final game. The air was heavy. Every heartbeat, every breath seemed amplified. And there he was, Faker, sitting in his chair, face still, eyes unblinking. Around him, the noise faded into a hum. He adjusted his keyboard, placed his hands, and whispered something only he could hear. "Let's do it." The final match was chaos and beauty all at once. Both teams played like warriors who had nothing left to lose. The crowd roared as every team fight exploded on screen. Yet through it all, Faker remained calm. His mind was clear. His hands moved faster than thought. Years of experience guided every choice, every step, every flash. Then came the final moment, the last push, the final nexus. The crowd counted down as T1 stormed the base. 3, 2, 1. The nexus exploded in a burst of light. The arena went silent for half a second, then erupted into thunder. Red and gold confetti rained from the ceiling. Teammates leapt from their chairs, shouting, hugging, crying. And in the center, Faker stood still, smiling faintly, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the trophy. 3 consecutive world championships, 2023,
2024, 2025. 6 in total. No one in history had done that before. The commentators screamed. The crowd chanted his name again and again. Faker! 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 But in his eyes, there wasn't pride. It was peace. He knew this wasn't just another victory. It was a full circle. The end of one era, the beginning of another. Riot Games honored him that year as the first member of the Hall of Legends. His name would be forever carved into the history of the game he had shaped. His face became the image of League of Legends itself, the quiet, humble champion who turned a keyboard and a mouse into instruments of art. When asked in an interview what kept him going after so many years, he said simply, "I still love the game." Those 5 words said more than any speech could. Because love was always the secret, the thing that outlasted fame, pressure, and time. After 12 years of competition, Faker had nothing left to prove. But he kept playing anyway. Every morning he still practiced. Every match he still focused. Every loss he still learned. He never saw himself as the best. He only saw himself as a student of the game, forever learning, forever improving. In a world that celebrates instant success, Faker reminded everyone that true greatness takes time. It takes patience, humility, and a heart that refuses to give up. When walked off the stage that night in 2025, the crowd still shouting his name, he looked back one last time. The lights glowed gold, the air shimmered with confetti, and for a brief moment, he saw 2 versions of himself. The boy who began it all in a small room in Seoul, and the man who had just conquered time itself. He smiled, because he understood something few ever do. Perfection is not the point. The point is devotion. Even now, long after the final game ended, the sound of that keyboard still echoes. The rhythm of his fingers, the breath between plays, the silence before victory. They all tell a story of love and endurance. And somewhere, in another room, maybe another young boy sits before a glowing monitor, chasing a dream that feels too far away. He doesn't know it yet, but he's walking a path that Faker once walked. A path built on discipline, on faith, on the quiet belief that effort matters. Because that's what Faker left behind. Not just trophies or titles, but an idea that greatness doesn't live in the spotlight. It lives in the hours no one sees. It lives in patience, in the will to try again tomorrow. He showed the world that legends are not born. They are built, click by click, hour by hour, day by day. When the lights go out and the world moves on, his name will still whisper through time. Lee Sang-hyeok, Faker, the unbroken legend. If this story moved you, take a moment to breathe, reflect, and share it. Because here, at Little Stories Around Us, we believe that even the quietest journeys can echo across generations. Thank you for listening. Keep learning, keep growing, and never stop showing up, one day at a time.